On a particularly cold autumn morning, in the vibrant and artistic city of Asheville, located in the heart of North Carolina, a dense gray mist descended from the imposing mountains that surrounded it, covering it like a veil that promised news with its slow withdrawal. The cold breeze, characteristic of the season, blew through the quiet streets, stirring the fallen leaves that decorated the path with shades of orange, red, and yellow, announcing a time of transformation. For Amber Wright, a 17-year-old girl whose life until that moment had been a tapestry woven with threads of uncertainties and faint hopes, that morning was not just another awakening in Asheville. It was a milestone, a sign that new chapters were about to be written in her story. Amber had spent most of her life in a local orphanage, a place that, despite the efforts of some kind employees, often felt more like a waiting space than a home. With deep brown eyes that seemed to reflect the experiences accumulated in her short life, and brown hair that fell unpretentiously over her shoulders, Amber was a figure of contradictions. Strong yet vulnerable. Young but incredibly wise for her age. Always dressed simply, she carried with her an aura of determination mixed with a healthy dose of skepticism, a defense mechanism forged by years of disappointments. That specific morning, as she walked through the streets of Asheville, Amber felt a whirlwind of emotions. The offer from Elizabeth Harper, a renowned doctor in the city, to take her into her home and supposedly help take care of her sick daughter, was an unexpected opportunity. Elizabeth, with her imposing stature, blonde hair always arranged in a perfect bun, and a wardrobe that exuded success and sophistication, represented everything Amber had never had. However, even in the face of the possibility of finally leaving the orphanage, a part of Amber couldn't help but wonder about the true intentions behind the generous gesture. Elizabeth's house, located in one of Asheville's most exclusive areas, was a modern construction with large glass windows that offered stunning views of the surrounding mountains. Although the beauty of the residence was undeniable, there was something about it that made Amber feel uneasy. Maybe it was the way daylight could barely penetrate the mist that seemed to cling to the house. Or maybe it was the silence, so dense it could almost be touched. Crossing the threshold of that house, Amber knew she was entering an unknown world, full of secrets and challenges. But armed with a mixture of cautious optimism and a fierce determination to find her place in the world, she was ready to face whatever came her way. After all, the cold breeze of that autumn morning brought not just the presage of changing seasons, it also brought the promise of a new life for Amber Wright, a life where the uncertainties of the past could finally give way to a future of endless possibilities. Amber Wright, on the verge of her 18th birthday, carried in her gaze an unusual depth, a window to a soul that had seen more than its fair share of challenges and disappointments. Her eyes, a dark brown, almost black, had that rare quality of seeming to absorb all the light and truth around her, reflecting a sharp acumen she had developed over the years. Her brown hair, which she often tied in a sloppy bun, was a mass of wavy strands that seemed to capture the essence of nonchalance, contrasting with her meticulously careful nature in all other aspects of her life. Her clothes, always simple and unadorned, spoke of a life of forced pragmatism, but even simplicity could not overshadow the inherent beauty that emanated from her, a beauty not of perfect features, but of the strength and vulnerability that coexisted in her expression and posture. Raised in the shifting shadows of an orphanage, Amber had few memories of a true home or family in the conventional sense. The orphanage, with its worn walls and the constant echo of young voices seeking attention, had been both her refuge and her prison. She learned early that hope was a luxury often followed by disappointment, and so with a grim realism, she had adjusted her expectations to the reality she knew. The orphanage staff, although some were kind and well-meaning, could not fully fill the void left by the absence of a true family, and the friendships she formed were often transient, undone by the adoption or departure of other children. Elizabeth Harper's proposal to take her under her wing was, therefore, a spark of change in the constant gray of Amber's life. Elizabeth, a figure of renown and respect in the Asheville medical community, represented everything the world outside the orphanage stood for: success, stability, and a life full of possibilities. The invitation to join the Harper family for Amber was a promise of something more, a chance to escape the shadows of a rootless past and perhaps find a sense of belonging that had always eluded her. However, despite the cautious optimism that this new chapter inspired, Amber could not fully rid herself of the skepticism that had taken root in her being. Elizabeth Harper's unexpected kindness, though welcome, raised questions in her mind. Why her? Out of all the children in the orphanage, what was the real motive behind her late adoption? And most importantly, could Amber truly allow herself to trust this change of fortune? Or would it be just another disappointment waiting to happen? These questions swirled in her mind as she packed her bags, each piece of simple clothing and each personal item she chose to bring marking the transition from one chapter of her life to another. With each item she placed in the suitcase, a mix of anxiety and hope intertwined more deeply within her, painting a complex picture of expectations and fears for the future that awaited her at the Harper house. At this crossroads of her life, Amber Wright was on the verge of discovering that true strength lay not only in withstanding storms, but also in allowing herself to believe that, after the storm, calm could come and perhaps even a rainbow, even a... Elizabeth Harper stood out not only as a renowned cardiologist in the Asheville community, but also as a figure whose presence was immediately noticed in any room she entered. With her tall stature and posture that blended authority and elegance, she seemed to emanate an aura of unquestionable competence and success. Her attire, always of the highest quality, ranged from sharply tailored suits to sophisticated dresses that subtly yet significantly enhanced her figure. Her blonde hair, which shone with golden hues under the light, was always kept in a flawless arrangement, whether in a polished bun for workdays at the hospital or in soft waves that framed her face on less formal occasions. Behind this appearance of invulnerability and professionalism, however, Elizabeth harbored layers of emotional complexity that she rarely allowed to show. Those who only knew her superficially saw only the dedicated doctor and single mother who seemed to manage her personal and professional life with skill. Yet close friends and more observant colleagues occasionally noticed a distant look in her blue eyes, a fleeting expression of reflection or concern that vanished as quickly as it appeared, replaced again by the mask of self-assurance. This ability to hide her true emotions was, in part, a professional necessity. A cardiologist must emanate calm and control, but it was also a personal defense mechanism, forged over years of facing the challenges of raising a daughter alone and dealing with the demands of a career that left little room for vulnerability. Elizabeth's house reflected her impeccable taste and her need for control. Located in a quiet neighborhood of Asheville, where the mountains in the distance offered a backdrop of natural beauty, the residence combined modern elegance with comfort. Every space was meticulously organized, from the office filled with medical books and professional awards to the living room, where designer sofas and contemporary artworks created an inviting environment, though clearly curated. The house, like Elizabeth, balanced superficial perfection with hidden layers of complexity. This contrast between Elizabeth and Amber could not be more pronounced. While Elizabeth navigated life with an unquestionable facade of success and hidden emotional complexity, Amber faced the world with vulnerability on the surface and a resilient strength shaped by years of uncertainties. The arrival of Amber into Elizabeth's life promised not just the clash of two seemingly irreconcilable worlds, but also the opportunity to reveal the hidden layers behind the masks both used to face the world. Elizabeth Harper's residence, located in one of the most coveted areas of Asheville, stood as a monument to modern sophistication and elegant design. Conceived by a renowned architect, the house was a harmonious mix of glass, steel, and stone, strategically positioned to capture the breathtaking views of the Blue Mountains surrounding the city. Large panoramic windows adorned almost all facades, flooding the interior with natural light and offering stunning views that promised to never cease to amaze. However, despite its undeniable beauty and open dialogue with the surrounding nature, the house carried a palpable aura of isolation. This silence, almost tangible, seemed to root in every corner, creating an atmosphere that, as welcoming as it tried to be, failed to hide its solitary essence. It was in this simultaneously majestic and enigmatic setting that Amber Wright took her first steps into a new phase of her life. Promising herself and Elizabeth to take care of Sophia, the doctor's teenage daughter, Amber could not help but feel the weight of responsibility mixed with a dose of curiosity about what life in this house held in store. Sophia, in turn, was a bright and kind presence, a vivid contrast to the sometimes gloomy atmosphere that seemed to envelop the residence. At just 15, she had large, expressive eyes that shone with an insatiable curiosity about the world, and a sweet smile that, though rare, had the power to light up the darkest spaces. It was evident to any attentive observer that Sophia carried an aura of innocence and lightness that defied the circumstances of her isolation. Sophia was treated by her mother as if she were of extraordinary fragility, kept away from the outside world under the justification of a fragile health condition. The house, as beautiful as it was, had become her golden cage, a space of protection that paradoxically limited her life experience. Amber, with her sharp instinct and perspicacity, began to quietly question the reasons behind this isolation. She observed Sophia, noting the absence of evident symptoms of a serious illness, and wondered about the truth hidden behind the narrative carefully constructed by Elizabeth. The dynamics within the Harper house were about to be challenged as Amber delved deeper into her new reality. While trying to adapt to her role as Sophia's caretaker, she also began to weave bonds of trust and affection with the young girl. This emerging connection, fueled by shared moments of laughter and discovery, promised to be the key to unraveling the mysteries surrounding Sophia's health and isolation. Amber, driven by a mix of determination and compassion, knew deep down that she would face any challenge to ensure Sophia a chance at a full life, free from the shadows of a questionable illness and the oppressive silence that dominated the Harper house. In the first days after her arrival at the Harper house, Amber Wright found herself navigating an atmosphere filled with unspoken rules and explicit limitations, all carefully imposed by Elizabeth under the pretext of protecting the delicate health of Sophia. Elizabeth was meticulous in her instructions, outlining a rigid set of guidelines that restricted young Sophia to confinements within the house, under the claim that her health condition, although rarely detailed, made her excessively vulnerable to external dangers. The atmosphere of the house, already laden with an almost tangible silence, became more oppressive as Amber absorbed the reality of Sophia's restricted life. Each day brought with it a silent struggle for Amber, who sought to understand and, at the same time, question the invisible barriers erected around Sophia, wondering about the true nature of the illness that justified such precautions. On a particularly clear and golden autumn afternoon, with Elizabeth absent due to commitments at the hospital, Amber felt compelled to challenge the rigid protocol of the house. Moved by a mix of rebellion and compassion, she made the decision to take Sophia to the garden. The outdoor space, normally a visual retreat only observed through the vast windows of the living room, became the setting for a small act of freedom. As they entered the garden, the soft sunlight of the autumn sun poured over them, dispelling the cold in the air and invoking a sense of renewal and life. Sophia, accustomed to confinement and shadow, felt the warmth of the sun on her skin, a vivid contrast to the pallor that had become her constant companion. Her eyes, normally resigned to an inner world, now sparkled with a mix of surprise and joy. It was then that Sophia, her voice trembling with a mix of hope and hesitation, turned to Amber with a question that carried the weight of her limited world. "Do you think I could ever go beyond this garden one day?" Her eyes sought the horizon, where the blue mountains rose majestically, a constant reminder of the wonders beyond her golden cage. Amber, caught by the sincerity of Sophia's question, felt a wave of determination and sympathy flow through her. Facing the young girl, whose expression reflected a mix of curiosity and a hunger for freedom, Amber responded with a promise born of both impulsiveness and a deep desire to see Sophia experience the world in all its fullness. "I promise you, Sophia, one day we will explore every corner of this world together," she said, her voice firm, though her heart was tight with the awareness of the possible consequences of such a statement. In that moment, between the golden light of the garden and the promise of future adventures, Amber and Sophia shared a silent bond, forged in the complicity of their small act of rebellion and the shared hope for better days. It was an unspoken pact, a promise of freedom and discovery, starting with small steps in the garden and dreaming of reaching the vast horizons that stretched beyond the blue mountains. As the days unfolded at the Harper house, the connection between Amber and Sophia blossomed, transforming into a source of strength and comfort for both. This relationship, though still new, was grounded in a tacit promise of hope and freedom, a promise that became increasingly essential as they faced the challenges imposed by Sophia's isolation. The shared moments in the garden, whispered conversations under the stars, and small acts of rebellion against the house's restrictions wove an invisible bond of complicity and affection between the two young women. For Sophia, Amber represented a glimpse of a broader world, full of possibilities and adventures. For Amber, taking care of Sophia offered a purpose and a human connection that she had longed for as long as she could remember. However, as the friendship between Amber and Sophia deepened, the relationship between Amber and Elizabeth took an opposite path. Elizabeth, with her ever-watchful eyes and a presence that demanded order and control, began to notice the subtle changes in the house's dynamics. Her coldness towards Amber became increasingly palpable, like an early frost threatening the last flowers of autumn. The interactions between Elizabeth and Amber, once marked by a distant courtesy, now carried an almost tangible tension, with each brief encounter bringing with it a chilly silence that spoke volumes. On a particularly cold afternoon, as shadows began to lengthen and the wind whispered of change, Elizabeth summoned Amber for a conversation in the office, a space that reflected the order and precision with which Elizabeth conducted her life, with shelves meticulously organized and diplomas attesting to her professional success. Seated at her imposing work desk, Elizabeth fixed Amber with a look that mixed disapproval and challenge. "Amber, I've noticed some changes in Sophia since your arrival." "Changes that concern me," Elizabeth began, her voice firm but laden with a calculated coldness. "Sophia has very specific conditions, and I fear you're not taking the seriousness of her situation into account." Amber, sensing the veiled accusation in Elizabeth's words, felt a mix of indignation and frustration bubble up within her. However, she chose to respond with a calm she barely felt. "Elizabeth, I understand your concerns, but I assure you I've done everything in my power to ensure Sophia's well-being. She seems happy, and I haven't seen any deterioration in her health," Amber retorted, striving to keep her voice steady despite the growing feeling of being unjustly judged. Elizabeth looked at Amber, her blue eyes like ice reflecting a cold calculation. "There's a difference between making a child feel temporarily happy and ensuring her long-term safety, Amber. I hope you understand the distinction and the responsibilities you've taken on." The conversation ended with a sense of impasse, leaving Amber disturbed by Elizabeth's growing hostility and the increasing sensation that a storm was approaching, one that could threaten the fragile promise of hope she had made to Sophia. Amber left the office with renewed determination to protect Sophia, not just from physical threats to her health, but also from the emotional shadows threatening to envelop her young life. As the days unfolded in the Harper residence, Amber Wright, with her observant and meticulous nature, began to notice nuances and patterns in Sophia's routine that had previously escaped her perception. Amid the apparent tranquility and daily routine, certain details began to emerge, bringing with them doubts and suspicions about the reality of Sophia's health condition. It was as if, little by little, the veil of mystery that surrounded the young girl's illness began to unravel, revealed by subtle but significant signs that contradicted the narrative carefully constructed by Elizabeth. Amber noted, for example, that the medications administered to Sophia did not seem to correspond to the treatment of a specific disease, but rather served a more ambiguous purpose, potentially for control or sedation. The bottles and packages, meticulously aligned in the medicine cabinet, bore labels indicating a variety of supposed conditions. But a closer look and some research revealed a lack of consistency that did not go unnoticed by a curious and concerned mind like Amber's. Furthermore, medical appointments were a constant question mark. They were strangely frequent, becoming almost a weekly routine, always with Elizabeth accompanying Sophia, leaving Amber to reflect on what was said and decided in these meetings from which she was always excluded. The visits to the doctor, shrouded in an aura of secrecy, were not just exclusive to Elizabeth's participation. They were also moments when communication between her and Amber became even more shallow, almost non-existent, as if each consultation served to cement even more the barriers between them. This growing perception on Amber's part not only fueled her suspicions about the nature of Sophia's condition, but also shed light on a family dynamic that was increasingly complex and disturbing. With each discovery, with each piece of the puzzle that fit, Amber felt a growing sense of urgency and responsibility towards Sophia, whose life she now realized was being shaped and limited by circumstances that went beyond mere health concerns. This journey of discovery was not, however, without its own challenges and dangers. Elizabeth's attention to Amber's actions and inquiries became increasingly sharp, their interactions charged with a palpable tension that made it clear that the matriarch's patience was wearing thin. The few times Amber tried to address her observations or express her concerns, she was met with evasive answers or direct reprimands, reinforcing the wall of silence and mystery that Elizabeth seemed determined to keep intact. Faced with these circumstances, Amber found herself at a moral and emotional crossroads. On one hand, the bond she had formed with Sophia compelled her to seek answers and fight for a better life for the young girl. On the other, Elizabeth's growing hostility and the fear of the unknown cast shadows over her determination. It was a game of caution and courage, where each step towards the truth was also a step into uncertain, potentially dangerous territory. But for Amber, the possibility of freeing Sophia from her invisible chains was a call she could not and did not want to ignore. On a particularly quiet night, with Elizabeth's absence marked by a trip to an important medical conference, Amber felt the weight of her suspicions transform into an unwavering resolve. Driven by a mix of concern and determination, she made the bold decision to explore the forbidden territory of Elizabeth's office. It was a space that breathed authority and knowledge, where shining medical awards and diplomas of prestige covered almost entirely the walls, casting the shadow of the doctor's success and competence. However, it was the impeccable order and absence of any personal trace that really highlighted Elizabeth's controlling nature. Among the many papers and files meticulously organized, one in particular caught Amber's attention like a beacon in the darkness. It was a dossier containing Sophia's medical records, but as Amber flipped through the pages, a sense of confusion and indignation began to grow within her. The descriptions of Sophia's conditions were strangely vague, the diagnoses seemed evasive, and the indicated treatments did not follow a logical pattern or a clear goal of healing. Armed with this new information, Amber sought out Sophia, finding her in her personal sanctuary, her room. It was a space that vibrated with the young girl's creative essence, adorned with drawings and paintings that Sophia produced in secret, a silent expression of her confined soul. The atmosphere was saturated with a palpable tension, a mix of fear at the invasion of the unknown, and a spark of hope for the possibility of freedom. Sitting next to Sophia, who shrank timidly, Amber began the conversation with visible hesitation, fearing the young girl's reaction. "Sophia," she said softly, "tonight, I discovered something. About your health. It seems that things are not exactly as your mother has been telling us." Sophia, with her eyes lowered, shifted her gaze away, a clear insecurity in her gesture of interlocking her fingers. I really don't feel sick, Amber. Sometimes I feel tired, but Mom insists it's because of my condition." Her voice was a whisper, laden with doubt and confusion. The sincerity and vulnerability reflected in Sophia's brown eyes deeply touched Amber, reinforcing her determination to seek the truth. "What if," she paused, choosing her words with utmost care, "what if we try to get a second opinion? Someone who can really clarify what's happening with you?" In Sophia's eyes, a whirlwind of emotions clashed. Fear, uncertainty, but also a glimpse of hope, the possibility of a different future shining faintly. "Do you think that's possible?" she asked, a spark of optimism fighting against resignation. "Without my mom finding out?" With firm determination, Amber nodded, her expression laden with a silent promise. "I'll find a way. You have the right to know the truth about your health, Sophia, and I'm here to help you discover it," Amber affirmed, offering not just her help but a pact of trust and unconditional support. In that moment, Within the walls of the room that served as Sophia's sanctuary, a new chapter was being written in their lives. A chapter of seeking the truth, challenging authority, and above all, the promise of a tomorrow where freedom was not just a distant dream. In the days following the disturbing discovery in Sophia's medical records, Amber, driven by a sense of urgency and responsibility, embarked on a secret mission. She knew she needed irrefutable evidence, something concrete she could use to protect Sophia and possibly challenge Elizabeth's unquestioned authority over her daughter's health. Using the money she had meticulously saved during her time working at the orphanage, Amber made arrangements for a consultation with one of Asheville's most respected pediatricians, whose reputation for integrity and competence gave her a cautious hope that the truth would finally be revealed. The day of the consultation arrived wrapped in a palpable atmosphere of tension, mixed with a faint hope that seemed to illuminate Sophia's eyes, despite the evident fear the circumstances imposed. Disguising their departure as a casual walk in the park, an excuse they hoped would be sufficient to avoid suspicion, Amber and Sophia headed to the hospital. Every step they took seemed charged with a duality of emotions. On one hand, the weight of anxiety and fear of the unknown. On the other, the lightness of a step towards freedom and truth. The consultation was a whirlwind of revelations and conflicting emotions. The pediatrician, after a series of meticulous examinations and a detailed conversation about Sophia's medical history and lifestyle, reached a conclusion that confirmed Amber's suspicions, but also shed light on years of questionable treatments and dubious medical decisions. Sophia suffered indeed from malnutrition and vitamin D deficiency, conditions that, while serious, were fully treatable with dietary adjustments and adequate exposure to sunlight. There was, in the doctor's words, no evidence of a serious illness that justified the prolonged isolation or invasive procedures to which she had been subjected. The journey back home was permeated by a reflective silence, where words seemed unnecessary in the face of the magnitude of what they had discovered. Amber and Sophia, now linked not only by mutual concern but also by the courage to seek the truth, shared a complex feeling of relief and apprehension. The revelation from the pediatrician was a double-edged sword. It brought hope for Sophia's future, but also anticipated an inevitable confrontation with Elizabeth, whose actions and decisions were now under incontrovertible questioning. Amber, feeling the weight of responsibility on her shoulders, knew that the next step would require a strength she hardly knew she possessed. Confronting Elizabeth with the truth about Sophia's health meant challenging the power structure within the Harper house, risking not just her own position, but also the delicate emotional and psychological balance of Sophia. Yet, armed with the truth and driven by a fierce determination to fight for Sophia's well-being, Amber prepared for the challenge ahead, aware that the journey in search of justice and transparency was just beginning. As the days passed in the Harper house, an atmosphere of uncertainty and tension began to become a constant, especially in light of Amber's growing doubts about Sophia's health condition and the strict, yet increasingly questionable rules imposed by Elizabeth. The guidelines established by Elizabeth under the pretext of medical care for Sophia seemed to float on a sea of arbitrariness, unanchored in any concrete evidence or clear medical necessity. For Amber, whose connection with Sophia deepened day by day, such measures began to appear not only unfounded but potentially harmful, sowing an unsettling suspicion that Elizabeth's true intentions might be hidden beneath the surface of maternal concern. On a night when winter made its presence felt more intensely, with the wind howling around the imposing structure of the Harper residence and Elizabeth again absent, consumed by her obligations at the hospital, Amber and Sophia sought refuge in the living room. The environment, usually somber and restrained, was momentarily transformed by the presence of Sophia's drawings and paintings, spreading their light and color among the shadows, creating an oasis of warmth and creativity. It was a vivid contrast to the rest of the house, a small space where Sophia could express herself, and Amber could forget, if only for moments, the worries weighing on them. Seeking to take advantage of the rare privacy, Amber decided to address the elephant in the room, a question that had been tormenting her for some time. "Sophia," she began, her voice cautious but firm, "have you ever wondered why your mother never openly discusses your illness? Why we don't have a clear treatment plan, specific medications, or regular consultations with a doctor we can follow. Sophia seemed to hesitate before the question, a visible conflict in her gaze as her fingers nervously toyed with the tip of her lower lip. The young girl had always shown reluctance to directly question her mother's decisions, a mix of loyalty and fear keeping her silent. I've always wanted to ask, she finally admitted, her voice so low it more resembled a whisper, a reflection of the tension the question evoked. But whenever I try, Mom gets tense, even angry. She insists that everything she does is to protect me, that it's better I don't know too much. The conversation, though brief, was a milestone in the relationship between Amber and Sophia. It revealed not just the deep layers of isolation and control exercised by Elizabeth over her daughter, but also Sophia's growing courage to confront the shadows of doubt surrounding her. For Amber, it was a confirmation of her suspicions and a call to action. It was no longer enough just to question. It was necessary to seek answers, to uncover the truth behind the veil of protection Elizabeth wove around Sophia. Amber's determination was strengthened, propelled by the responsibility she felt for Sophia, and the conviction that together they could face whatever was hidden in the depths of that house and that family. As the days passed under the roof of the Harper household, the doubt that had initially sprouted in Amber's heart about Sophia's condition transformed into a steely determination to unearth the truth. This shift wasn't driven by mere whim, but by a series of observations and incidents that collectively seemed to point to a reality vastly different from the one presented by Elizabeth. Amber understood the need to proceed with extreme caution. Any misjudgment could not only jeopardize her own position in the house, but, more importantly, could exacerbate Sophia's already precarious situation. With suspicions now sharpening her gaze, Amber began monitoring the interactions between Elizabeth and Sophia more intensively. She noticed a troubling pattern of behavior on Elizabeth's part, keeping her daughter under an almost obsessive surveillance. The few times Sophia mentioned anything related to her health, Elizabeth swiftly diverted the conversation with a skill that suggested practice. It was as if every aspect of Sophia's life was meticulously controlled, with Elizabeth always ready to intercept any attempt at dialogue about the supposed illness. It was on one late afternoon, with the garden bathed in the soft glow of dusk, that a seemingly minor incident precipitated a significant shift. Sophia, always cautious but enjoying a rare moment of outdoor freedom, stumbled over a protruding root, resulting in a mild twist of her ankle. To any casual observer, the accident would have been nothing more than a minor setback, worthy of some rest and light care. However, Elizabeth's reaction was alarming in its intensity. When Amber informed Elizabeth of the incident, the doctor's reaction was immediate and disproportionate. With a gaze mixing panic and anger, Elizabeth insisted that Sophia be confined to her room, with explicit orders for the young woman to remain in absolute rest until further notice. This exaggerated reaction not only confirmed Amber's suspicions, but also made her question even more deeply the nature of Sophia's illness. In the days following the incident, the atmosphere in the Harper household became even more tense. Amber, now more than ever, was determined to find answers. Observing Elizabeth impose even stricter restrictions on Sophia, Amber understood that confronting Elizabeth without concrete evidence would be futile. Instead, she began devising a plan that would not only confirm her suspicions about Sophia's condition, but also offer them a chance to challenge Elizabeth's oppressive regime. It was a risky move, with the potential to drastically alter the course of their lives, but Amber was ready to take that risk for the chance to free Sophia from her invisible chains. That night, the Harper household was enveloped in an almost solemn silence, with Elizabeth secluded in her office, lost among stacks of medical documents and case studies. It was a moment of quietude, but also of latent tension, as Amber knew that the conversation she was about to have with Sophia could set the course of their lives from here on out. Finding Sophia lying on her bed, her eyes fixed on the ceiling in a state of deep reflection, Amber felt a wave of determination mixed with a twinge of anxiety as she broached the subject weighing on their hearts. "Sophia, this can't continue," Amber began, her voice trembling with concern yet firm in conviction. "Your mother is keeping you trapped here. and something tells me you're not ill in the way she claims." Sophia, turning slowly to face Amber, revealed in her eyes a mixture of fear and surprise. For a moment, the room seemed smaller, as if the walls were closing in on them, laden with the weight of unspoken words and hidden secrets. "What can we do, Amber?" Sophia asked, her voice almost a whisper, betrayed by hope of finding a way out. "Mother will never allow me to seek a real doctor, one not under her control." Amber, moved by a protective impulse and revolt against the injustice Sophia had been facing, gently held the young woman's hand, conveying through touch a silent promise of solidarity. "We'll find a way, Sophia. I promise you," Amber affirmed, making it clear that regardless of the obstacles, they would face the situation together. "We'll uncover the truth about your health, and I'll be by your side no matter what happens." It was a pact, sealed in the quiet of that night, that illuminated a path through the darkness of uncertainty. The next morning, taking advantage of Elizabeth's convenient absence, who had left for an unavoidable conference, Amber took decisive action. Carefully, she helped Sophia dress, choosing clothes that suggested a simple outing, an attempt to maintain appearances for any casual observer. Together, they left the deceptive safety of the Harper household, propelled by newfound courage and determination to seek answers at the local hospital. This moment marked the beginning of a journey towards freedom and truth, a direct challenge to the narrative constructed by Elizabeth, and a bold step towards Sophia's self-determination. As they walked side by side, a sense of cautious hope began to bloom, suggesting that, despite the challenges ahead, the truth would finally come to light, paving the way for a new chapter in their lives. The journey to the local hospital became a journey fraught with almost palpable tension, with Amber and Sophia enveloped in a silence filled with expectations and fears about the unknown that awaited them. The heavy atmosphere was punctuated only by the sound of hurried footsteps and accelerated heartbeats, a silent orchestra of anxiety and hope. Amber, though filled with fierce determination, couldn't help but feel the weight of responsibility on her shoulders, aware that the actions she was about to take could forever change the course of Sophia's life. Upon arriving at the hospital, an imposing building that stood like a beacon of hope in the cloudy morning, Amber took the lead, her posture reflecting a mixture of courage and caution. With a firm yet gentle voice, she explained the situation to the attending doctor, a middle-aged professional with eyes that conveyed a rare combination of competence and compassion. The doctor, after listening attentively, agreed to examine Sophia, a decision that ignited a spark of hope in the previously apprehensive gaze of the young woman. The exams and the subsequent consultation were a whirlwind of emotions for Amber and Sophia. While Sophia underwent a series of tests, Amber waited, consumed by a mixture of anxiety and hope, each minute seeming to stretch into eternity. When the doctor finally returned with the results, relief and indignation mixed in Amber's heart. The diagnoses confirmed their suspicions. Sophia suffered from malnutrition and vitamin D deficiency, serious conditions but entirely treatable with proper nutrition and sunlight exposure. There was no medical justification for the years of isolation and invasive treatments to which Sophia had been subjected. The journey back home to Harper was traversed in a state of intense reflection, with the implications of what they had discovered weighing heavily on both of them. Amber knew she was facing her toughest challenge yet, confronting Elizabeth with the undeniable truth about Sophia's health. The prospect of this confrontation filled Amber with deep apprehension, not only for the potential repercussions of her actions, but also for the uncertainty of how Elizabeth would react to being challenged with the truth. As they returned to the Harper household, the sensation of crossing that threshold again carried with it an emotional weight that Amber struggled to manage. She knew the hours ahead would be crucial, marking a turning point in Sophia's life and possibly her own. With the truth about Sophia's condition now crystal clear, Amber prepared for the inevitable confrontation with Elizabeth, armed with the determination to fight for Sophia's well-being, regardless of the consequences her actions might entail. It was a moment of defining courage, a test of her resolve and commitment to truth and justice. The atmosphere in the Harper residence that day was saturated with a tense silence, a prelude to the emotional storm that was about to unfold. As Amber and Sophia crossed the threshold of the house, each step echoed against the marble floor, marking the rhythm of their apprehensive hearts. Amber, with an unwavering determination reflected in her eyes, led Sophia, whose expression mixed anxiety with a thread of hope, to the couch in the living room. Ensuring Sophia was settled, Amber took a deep breath, gathering courage for the impending confrontation. Walking towards Elizabeth's office, where she knew she would find the doctor immersed in her usual work, Amber felt every heartbeat like a hammer against her chest. The office door, normally a portal to Elizabeth's private sanctuary, seemed at that moment like a barrier between truth and the shadows of doubt and fear. Upon entering, Amber found Elizabeth engrossed in piles of documents, her posture conveying an authority and control that contrasted with the emotional chaos about to unfold. Taken aback by the sudden interruption, Elizabeth looked up, her eyes reflecting a mixture of surprise and irritation upon recognizing Amber. "Elizabeth, we need to talk. Now," Amber declared, keeping her voice firm, though nuances of calm tried to soften the gravity of her words. Elizabeth, visibly discontent with the interruption, furrowed her brow, a clear sign of her defensive stance. "What happened? Where did you take Sophia?" "I took her to the hospital," Amber revealed, watching closely as color drained from Elizabeth's face, replaced by a paleness that betrayed her surprise and perhaps fear. "She's not sick, Elizabeth. She's suffering from malnutrition and vitamin D deficiency, conditions that in no way justify the isolation and treatments you've imposed." A heavy silence fell over the office, the tension between the two women turning the air into something almost solid. Elizabeth rose slowly, each movement laden with a stiffness that spoke volumes about the internal battle she was facing. "You don't know what you're talking about, Amber. Sophia is my daughter. I know what's best for her," Elizabeth retorted, the authority in her voice attempting to assert a control that was clearly slipping away. "No, Elizabeth, what you've been doing is abuse, keeping her isolated, pretending she's sick. For what? To attract attention and sympathy?" Amber confronted, indignation boiling in her veins, fueled by every exchanged word. Elizabeth's hostility was palpable, her face contorted with anger. "You're just a girl, an orphan I took in out of pity. Do you really think you have any authority here?" The verbal assault hit Amber hard, but her determination was unwavering. "Maybe I'm just a girl, but unlike you, I can distinguish right from wrong. Sophia won't suffer because of you anymore. I'll make sure of it." It was in this moment of cutting tension that Sophia, gathering her strength, entered the office, drawn by the argument. "Mom, why? Why did you do this to me?" The vulnerability in her voice was a sharp contrast to the rigidity of the environment. Sophia's question seemed to strike a raw nerve in Elizabeth, who for the first time showed signs of vulnerability. "I just wanted to be needed. For you to need me," she whispered, the confession marking the beginning of a long and revealing night. A painful but necessary step towards healing and understanding. In the months following that decisive confrontation in Elizabeth's office, the atmosphere in the Harper household underwent a notable transformation. The revelation of Sophia's true health conditions and Elizabeth's subsequent acknowledgement of her problematic actions marked the beginning of a period of profound and necessary change for all involved. Elizabeth embarked on a process of intensive treatment, a challenging and introspective journey that forced her to confront the complexities of her own internal demons. With the help of mental health professionals, she began to unravel the layers of her own psyche, seeking to understand and heal the motivations behind her destructive behavior. These sessions revealed a tangle of emotions and past traumas, illuminating the path to recovery. The house, once a reflection of Elizabeth's controlling mind, slowly began to open up, symbolizing not only the physical change but also the emotional one that was taking place within its walls. Meanwhile, Amber and Sophia, empowered by their courageous quest for truth, began to embrace the newfound freedom granted to them. The restrictions that once confined Sophia's exploration of the outside world were lifted, allowing the two to embark on adventures that once seemed impossible. Together, they rediscovered the neighborhood, visiting local parks, museums, and other cultural attractions that Asheville had to offer. Each outing was a revelation for Sophia, whose eyes sparkled with the fascination of a child seeing the world for the first time. Amber, in turn, found joy in Sophia's simple happiness, feeling gratified to have played a crucial role in triggering this transformation. The bond between the two grew in depth and affection, forged not only in the adversity they had faced together, but also in the shared joy of each new day of freedom and discovery. They became not just confidants but true kindred spirits, united by an experience that had changed their lives in ways they could never have imagined. This period of growth and exploration was accompanied by an evolution in the family dynamics within the Harper household. With Elizabeth committed to her own healing journey, there was an openness to dialogue and mutual understanding that had previously been lacking. Discussions that would have once been unthinkable now found space at the dinner table, where the three could share thoughts, fears, and hopes for the future. The transformation of the Harper household from a place of confinement and control to a home of love, acceptance, and freedom reflected the personal journey of each of its inhabitants. Elizabeth, struggling to overcome her controlling tendencies, Sophia, flourishing under the newly discovered freedom, and Amber, who became the unwitting catalyst for change, together found a path toward a brighter, more hopeful future. It was a testament to the power of truth, courage, and unconditional love to heal the deepest wounds and build bridges over seemingly insurmountable chasms. As the harsh winter bid farewell, giving way to the first vibrant signs of spring, the Harper residence underwent a metamorphosis that reflected the profound internal changes of its inhabitants. With Elizabeth firmly committed to her therapeutic process, confronting the ghosts that led her to exert such tight control over Sophia, the shadows of doubt and fear that hung over the house gradually began to disperse, as if the light of spring were dissolving the last remnants of winter's resistance. The atmosphere that was once laden with tension and uncertainty, dominated by an almost tangible silence and a constant sense of surveillance, now breathed an air of freedom and openness. For the first time in years, windows were opened to allow the fresh spring air to fill the rooms, bringing with it the scent of rebirth that only this season can offer. Laughter began to echo through the hallways, filling the empty spaces with life and joy, a stark contrast to the stillness that once defined the home. Amber and Sophia, strengthened by a bond that adversity only deepened, embraced this new chapter with enthusiasm and curiosity. With Elizabeth committed to her recovery, they found newfound freedoms to explore the world beyond the walls that had for so long defined the limits of their existence. Together, they ventured beyond the Harper House garden, discovering the simple pleasures of walking under the open sky, feeling the grass beneath their feet, and witnessing the blossoming of flowers, symbolizing not only the changing seasons, but also the flourishing of their own lives. These expeditions into the outside world became a source of discovery and learning. Amber, taking on the role of guide and protector, shared with Sophia the wonders of nature and society that the young woman had been deprived of experiencing. Each outing was an adventure, a small step in their collective journey of healing and self-discovery. And Sophia, with eyes shining with admiration and a heart open to the infinite possibilities now unfolding before her, absorbed every moment, every new experience, as if they were precious treasures. Meanwhile, Elizabeth, through her own journey of introspection and therapy, began to reconcile with the parts of herself that had led her to act so destructively. This process was not easy. Each session was a battle against the barriers she herself had erected over the years. However, Elizabeth's progress was tangible, manifesting in small gestures of openness and vulnerability, in moments of genuine connection with Amber and Sophia that were previously unthinkable. The transformation of the Harper house under the rejuvenating influence of spring was a tangible testament to the capacity for change, the possibility of renewal after periods of darkness and isolation. It was a reminder that, just like the seasons, life is made up of cycles of decline and rebirth, and that love, understanding, and the willingness to grow can lead to healing and a fresh start. As the invisible chains that once kept Sophia confined within the boundaries of the Harper house began to unravel, Amber and Sophia plunged headfirst into the exploration of newfound freedom. Amber, whose determination and strength of will never wavered even in the most challenging moments, emerged as a true beacon of inspiration and motivation for Sophia, guiding her through this new world of unlimited possibilities. Each day brought a new adventure, an invitation for Sophia to experience and delight in aspects of life that she had been forced to observe only from afar. Under Amber's careful and encouraging guidance, Sophia began to venture beyond the gates of the Harper property, each step outside a challenge to the fear that had been instilled in her by years of isolation. Amber, with a patience and understanding that only someone with her experience could offer, was always by Sophia's side, supporting her, encouraging her to expand her horizons and pursue what truly made her feel alive. Together, they explored local parks where Sophia could feel the grass under her bare feet for the first time in years, a sensation that filled her with joy and wonder. Amber introduced her to the simple yet infinitely precious wonders of nature: the birdsong at dawn, the comforting murmur of a stream winding among the rocks, and the breathtaking spectacle of a sunset painting the sky with vibrant colors. Not limiting themselves to outdoor experiences alone, Amber also encouraged Sophia to explore her artistic passions, taking her to galleries and museums where the young woman could immerse herself in the world of art, discovering and nurturing her own creative vein. It was a constant discovery, not only of new interests and hobbies, but also of herself, of her own identity beyond the walls that once defined her entire world. These moments of discovery and exploration became fundamental to Sophia's growth, each new experience a piece in the mosaic of her journey of self-discovery. Amber watched with pride and admiration as Sophia blossomed, transforming from a flower locked in a greenhouse to a vibrant manifestation of life and energy, free to grow and expand at her own pace and direction. The transformation was not only visible in her daily activities, but also in her interaction with the world around her. Sophia, who once hesitated even to make eye contact, now faced the world with a curious and confident gaze, ready to face whatever life had in store for her. Amber, in turn, found in Sophia's journey a renewed sense of purpose, a confirmation that even the simplest actions, driven by love and compassion, can have a profound impact on someone's life. Together, they redefined the meaning of freedom and self-discovery, proving that with courage and support, it is possible to overcome even the most imposing barriers and find light in a world that once seemed shrouded in shadows. On a sunny Saturday afternoon, marked by the gentle warmth of spring beginning to awaken the city of Asheville from its winter slumber, Amber planned a special surprise for Sophia. Determined to introduce Sophia to the world beyond the confines that had confined her experience for so long, Amber invited her for a stroll through the vibrant heart of the city. As they left the Harper house behind, a sense of anticipation grew between them, fueled by the promise of discoveries and adventures. The streets of Asheville pulsed with the energy of everyday life, a vivid contrast to the quietude that had dominated Sophia's existence until then. Locals and tourists mingled, each absorbed in their own narratives, while street artists brought color and music to the sidewalks, turning every corner into a stage for the expression of the city's soul. The air was infused with the scent of newly blooming flowers, a sweet reminder of the renewal that spring brought with it. "I never imagined Asheville to be so vibrant," Sophia commented, her eyes widened with admiration at the spectacle of life unfolding before her. There was a light in her gaze, a spark of curiosity and wonder that Amber had never seen before. With a smile reflecting both her own joy and the pleasure of witnessing Sophia's response, Amber replied, "There's a whole world out there waiting for you, and this is just the beginning." Her words were a promise, an invitation to explore and discover the infinite possibilities life offered. They dedicated the afternoon to exploring every corner of Asheville, from art shops filled with inspiring works to galleries showcasing local talents, each space a window to different forms of beauty and expression. Cozy cafes offered refuge and comfort as they conversed and planned future adventures. In a moment that seemed to suspend time, they found themselves in front of a gallery whose window was adorned with paintings of seascapes, each canvas a window to the infinite blue and the tranquility of the waves. Sophia, captivated by the beauty before her, stood still, her eyes reflecting the vast sea stretching across the screens. "You've always wanted to see the sea, haven't you?" Amber inquired, sensing the depth of Sophia's unspoken desire. With a gentle nod, Sophia responded with a voice laden with dream and longing. "Yes, it always seems so free. What it must be like to feel the sand beneath your feet, to hear the sound of the waves." Holding Sophia's hand with a gesture of support and encouragement, Amber affirmed, "Then let's do it. Let's see the sea." It was more than a promise. It was a vow that together they would face the world, seeking freedom and fulfilling dreams that had until then seemed distant. This stroll through Asheville was not just an afternoon of discovery for Sophia. It was a milestone in her journey of self-discovery and freedom, guided by the friendly and determined hand of Amber. Together, they began to weave a tapestry of experiences, each thread a story of courage, hope, and a limitless future. In the months following that revealing afternoon in Asheville, Amber and Sophia dedicated themselves to meticulously planning a trip to the coast, marking on the calendar the day that would become a significant milestone in their lives. For both of them, the trip transcended the idea of a simple escape from daily routine. It symbolized a rite of passage, an act of affirming newly discovered freedom and the promise of a future filled with possibilities. It was a celebration not only of the unbreakable bond they had forged, but also of life, which, after years of confinement and shadows, finally unfolded before Sophia with all its vibrant colors and simple joys. Planning the trip was a process filled with anticipation and excitement. Amber, with her usual determination, took care of every detail, from choosing the destination to making accommodation reservations, always considering what would provide Sophia with the most meaningful and enriching experiences. Together, they discussed the places they wanted to explore, the activities they wished to engage in, and the dreams they hoped to fulfill. Each conversation, each decision made, further strengthened their mutual understanding and affection, turning the journey into a tangible symbol of their joint growth and healing. When the time finally came to head to the coast, the excitement was almost tangible. Although Amber tried to maintain a calm composure, inside she shared Sophia's excitement and anxiety, anticipating the moment they would witness the vastness of the sea together. The journey to the coast was marked by lighthearted conversations and laughter, an excited countdown until the moment they would reach their destination. Sophia's first encounter with the ocean was indeed a moment of pure magic, a memory etched into both of their minds. As they approached the beach, the sound of waves gently breaking on the shore filled the air, a prelude to the transformative experience that was about to unfold. When they finally caught sight of the vast expanse of blue stretching out before them, Sophia hesitated for a brief moment, as if taking a breath before diving into a new world. Then, with uninhibited joy reflecting the purity of her rejuvenated spirit, she ran towards the waves, laughing as the cold water enveloped her feet, symbolizing a baptism in the waters of freedom and renewal. Watching the scene unfold by the seaside, Amber felt tears of joy mix with the smile on her face, an expression of gratitude for the journey they had traveled together and the promising future unfolding before them. In that moment, facing the immensity of the sea, Amber understood that true magic lay not only in the freedom to explore the external world, but also in the ability to break free from internal chains, opening the heart to the beauty and infinite possibilities of life. In the days following their arrival at the coast, Amber and Sophia surrendered themselves to boundless exploration of the natural wonders the coastline had to offer. Each day was a new adventure, an invitation to discover and marvel at the beauty that the outside world held for them, far beyond the confines of a previously limited life. Together, they walked along the expansive beaches, leaving their footprints in the still fresh morning sand as the sun rose on the horizon, bathing everything in its golden light. They dedicated themselves to collecting shells, an activity that quickly became more than just a pastime. For Sophia, each shell was a treasure, a physical reminder of the freedom and joy that now were part of her life. Amber, watching the young woman immerse herself in this simple yet meaningful pursuit, felt immense pride and deep happiness for having contributed to this transformation. The shells they collected were not mere objects. They were symbols of hope, new beginnings, and the promise of a future filled with discovery and happiness. Sunsets had become a sacred ritual for the two of them, a moment of contemplation and connection, not only between themselves, but with the vastness of the world around them. Sitting on the soft sand, they watched in silence as the sky transformed into a spectacle of vibrant colors, tinting everything in shades of orange, pink, and purple. In these moments, a sense of peace and gratitude enveloped them, filling their hearts with the certainty that together they could face any challenge life presented them. They promised themselves that this journey would be just the first of many adventures together. It was a commitment to the future, a vow to never again be limited by walls, whether the physical ones of the Harper house or the emotional ones they still needed to break down. The journey to the sea had proven to be more than an escape. It was a portal to a world of unlimited possibilities, a testament to the power of freedom and unconditional love. In the days spent immersed in the beauty of the coastline, Amber and Sophia rediscovered what it meant to live fully. Every wave breaking on the shore, every shell they collected, every sunset they witnessed together was an affirmation of life, a celebration of newfound freedom and the depth of the bond they had formed. And as they promised themselves that this would be just the first of many adventures, they knew deep in their hearts that together they were capable of weathering any storm and enjoying every rainbow life had in store for them. Returning to Asheville, invigorated by the journey to the coast and the profound transformations they had experienced, Amber and Sophia found themselves faced with a unique opportunity to give back and make a difference in the community. Driven by deep gratitude and the desire to share the hope they had found, they made a decision that marked the beginning of a new chapter not only in their own lives, but in the lives of many others. Using the inheritance left by Elizabeth, who now saw her own healing journey as part of a greater legacy, Amber and Sophia dedicated themselves to revitalizing the orphanage where Amber had spent much of her childhood. Their dream was to transform it into much more than a simple shelter. They aspired to create a true home, where love, understanding, and opportunities for a bright future were within reach of every child sheltered there. The orphanage's reopening ceremony became a landmark event in the community, a day filled with joy, tears, and celebration. The event attracted not only the attention of local residents, but also that of various organizations interested in supporting the cause. Amber and Sophia, with hearts overflowing with emotion, openly shared their stories with the guests, recounting the challenges they had faced, the shadows of the past they had overcome, and, most importantly, the light of hope that had guided them to that moment. Their words, filled with sincerity and strength, resonated in the hearts of all present, leaving a lasting impression and inspiring a wave of support for the initiative. The orphanage, now christened with a new name honoring the unbreakable bond and shared journey of Amber and Sophia, emerged as a symbol of hope and renewal in the community. More than just a physical space, it represented a commitment to the well-being and future of the children it housed, offering not only a safe refuge but an environment where they could grow, learn, and dream. The renovation and expansion project included the creation of spaces dedicated to art, education, and leisure, reflecting the belief that every child deserves the opportunity to explore their talents and passions. On that day of celebration, as Amber and Sophia walked through the refurbished corridors of the orphanage, watching the children play and explore their new home, a sense of fulfillment and gratitude filled them. They knew that, although the journey to that point had been filled with challenges, each obstacle overcome had been a step towards a greater purpose. Together, they had turned their experiences into a driving force for good, touching the lives of countless others and planting the seeds for a future where love, hope, and opportunity flourish. So what did you think of this incredible story? Leave your opinions in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications to be alerted to each new video. Until next time.